I have always had a special ability to read minds. I can hear the thoughts of those who don't love me. Because of this ability, I can easily discern whether someone's affection for me is genuine or not. I can swiftly detach from superficial friends and remain indifferent to the confessions of long-admired crushes. Even when buying durians, I can pick the juiciest and sweetest one by listening to the vendor's thoughts. Every thought they have is crystal clear to me. To avoid the constant noise, I usually avoid eye contact with strangers in my daily life. But when I first met Emily Frost, the world quieted down, leaving only our clear conversation.
Hello, may I get to know you?
No thoughts.
Hello.
During the time Emily pursued me, the voices in my head were simple and pure. I believed she loved me. So, we fell in love, dated, and eventually talked about marriage. For 2 whole years, I never heard her thoughts. But just before our wedding, I suddenly could hear Emily Frost's thoughts. Because of the wedding, Emily had been particularly busy lately. She came from a wealthy family and had successfully taken over her family's financial company. With the wedding preparations, we had many things to handle, especially in the past 2 months. I had my own career and respected Emily's as well. So, we barely saw each other during this time. But today, we were finalizing our outfits, and I couldn't help but feel a sweet anticipation at the thought of spending rare time together.
Emily, you look beautiful.
Thanks, John. I can't wait for tomorrow.
When I arrived at the studio on time, she was already there, trying on shoes. She instructed the staff on something and walked out while talking on the phone, her tone soothing. I understood her busyness. Running a company isn't easy, especially when she's not the only heir in her family. We exchanged a knowing glance. But then, Emily Frost's voice suddenly echoed in my mind.
Michael said he would disrupt the wedding tomorrow. Better wear sneakers for a quick getaway.
Michael? Disrupt the wedding?
Emily?
I froze, staring at her mouth, confirming it was her thoughts. I didn't know how to react. It was a hot summer day, but a chill spread through my body, paralyzing me. I could hear her thoughts now, and the implications were clear. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the staff placing a pair of sneakers inside the wedding outfit as per her instructions. Emily nodded at me and walked out. This was our understanding. She must have something important to handle. But the words I heard were real, and I never misheard thoughts.
Emily, wait.
My body moved on its own as I followed her, disbelief in my voice as I called out.
Emily?
My callmate Emily paused just before getting into the car, but only for a moment. She quickly explained and instructed the driver to leave.
Sorry, there's an urgent matter with a client. I have to go.
She was lying. Her thoughts were clear.
From the tone of his voice, I can tell Michael is angry. If I don't appease him, he won't let me come home tonight.
I'm not one to dwell on my own thoughts. Instead of overthinking, I decided to take action. I found an excuse to meet Emily Frost's secretary privately and used my mind-reading ability to gather more information. My callmate Emily paused just before getting into the car, but only for a moment. She quickly explained and instructed the driver to leave.
Sorry, there's an urgent matter with a client. I have to go.
She was lying. Her thoughts were clear.
From the tone of his voice, I can tell Michael is angry. If I don't appease him, he won't let me come home tonight.
I'm not one to dwell on my own thoughts. Instead of overthinking, I decided to take action. I found an excuse to meet Emily Frost's secretary privately and used my mind-reading ability to gather more information. My callmate Emily paused just before getting into the car, but only for a moment. She quickly explained and instructed the driver to leave.
Sorry, there's an urgent matter with a client. I have to go.
She was lying. Her thoughts were clear.
From the tone of his voice, I can tell Michael is angry. If I don't appease him, he won't let me come home tonight.
Instead of overthinking, I decided to take action. I found an excuse to meet Emily Frost's secretary privately and used my mind-reading ability to gather more information. In the video, the crowd was in chaos, searching for me. Two bewildered figures stood on the stage, unnoticed.
Where's John Carter?
Where did Mr. Cooper go?
Where's the groom? His phone is unreachable. Has anyone checked the rest area?
Search the changing room, the rooftop, everywhere. Why are you all standing around? Move.
Even Emily's parents, who had been stern-faced, urgently instructed the staff to find me. The guests joined the search, ignoring the two people on stage. Emily Frost and Matthew stood there awkwardly, like monkeys on display, unsure of what to do. I sent a brief message to Alex Smith, informing him I was about to board a plane, and another short message to my parents, explaining the situation and asking them not to disclose any personal information about me. I switched my phone to airplane mode and settled into the first-class seat, ready to enjoy the long flight. As soon as I landed, Alex Smith's messages came flooding in. It seemed the aftermath of the event was quite entertaining. He couldn't wait and called me directly.
"Ha, John, that was brutal."
You have no idea, the whole city is in an uproar. The guests were all important people, and your runaway act caused quite a stir.
"Those two fools stood on stage for 10 minutes, completely ignored. They eventually walked off on their own. I could practically feel the secondhand embarrassment."
Check the trending topics, the video is #1. People are calling them the foolish couple. They even went to your villa, and when they found you weren't there, they were furious.
They rang your doorbell like they were sending Morse code. Beep, beep, beep.
I was about to leave when she caught up with me, asking where you were. I told her you went abroad. She was so mad, but you should have seen how fast she ran in those sneakers.
Just hearing Alex's laughter, I knew how much trouble Emily Frost was in. She didn't manage to steal the wedding, and she ended up embarrassing herself.
Emily Frost's reaction didn't surprise me. She assumed that for the sake of our family's reputations, I wouldn't make a scene. She thought I would quietly accept the situation, given that our family's business was abroad and wouldn't be too affected. But she didn't expect me to run away, tearing down the facade and shoving it in her and Matthew's faces. Let them be. Love is enjoyable, but marriage is about endurance. The life of Cinderella and her prince doesn't end with the wedding day, it's the daily grind that follows. When you reach a dead end, it's time to turn back. Avoiding an unhappy marriage is worth celebrating.
My parents had settled abroad years ago, where relationships are more open and free. Besides, Emily Frost and I hadn't even registered our marriage, so legally, we weren't even a couple. My callmate Emily paused just before getting into the car, but only for a moment. She quickly explained and instructed the driver to leave.
Sorry, there's an urgent matter with a client. I have to go.
She was lying. Her thoughts were clear.
From the tone of his voice, I can tell Michael is angry. If I don't appease him, he won't let me come home tonight.
I'm not one to dwell on my own thoughts. Instead of overthinking, I decided to take action. I found an excuse to meet Emily Frost's secretary privately and used my mind-reading ability to gather more information.
I also heard that Matthew has been placing people in Emily Frost's company. He's having a good time. Once they got married, the Smith family acknowledged him, and his own business took off.
Riding on the coattails of a big tree, huh? It makes me furious to think about how hard you worked to bring resources to Emily Frost, only for Matthew to reap the benefits.
I continued flipping through project documents while chatting with Alex Smith on speakerphone.
I didn't lose out. I made quite a bit from them too.
But Emily Frost's life can't be easy. She has the management rights, but the decision-making power still lies with her father. There's no way the Zhao Group will end up with the Smith surname. Besides, she's not the only young person in the Zhao family.
It's hard to say, but I understand Emily Frost's ambition. The company isn't solely under her control. I suspect Matthew is using a strategy of acting first and reporting later to place his people.
Thanks to that wedding, our domestic partners are aware of the tensions between Emily Frost and me. They shared some information, like how the Zhao family pushed her cousin into a prominent position, putting significant pressure on her.
Balancing love and career must be tough for Emily Frost.
What do you mean? Had you become a monk abroad? You're feeling sorry for her tough life now? What's next? Offering her comfort.
Not comfort, but I'm thinking I might seize this opportunity to make a profit.
Wow, I thought you were a romantic, but it turns out you're a capitalist.
But I didn't expect to receive a call from Emily Frost 2 months later.
John Carter.
Hearing her voice after so long sent a shiver down my spine.
Emily Frost? Miss Miller? No wonder the professor never told me the client's Chinese name, always saying it was an old acquaintance. So, it's you.
My attitude towards Emily Frost finding me was rather indifferent. I had left the country, not the world. The business circles, both domestic and abroad, are small. It wouldn't take much effort for Emily Frost to find me.
John Carter, I.
Her hesitant tone annoyed me, and I silently rolled my eyes. What do you want to say? There's no old affection to rekindle with a cheating ex-girlfriend. Not wishing her ill is already kind enough. I only greeted her out of professional courtesy.
If there's no issue, let me introduce the project to you, Ms. Frost.
John Carter, I'm really sorry about what happened. I know I hurt you, and that's why you left for abroad in anger. I'm sorry, I owe you an apology. I
was silent for a moment and sighed.
Emily Frost, have you gotten what you wanted?
There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and Emily's voice grew weary.
I don't know. Matthew has changed so much that I almost doubt he's the same person I once loved. Sorry, I know I shouldn't disturb your life now, but I just wanted to talk to you. I attended a party today and suddenly thought of the days we fought side by side.
If Mrs. Smith knew you were in contact with me, it wouldn't be appropriate. Cecilia, could you please introduce the project to Miss Frost? I have something else to attend to.
No matter how unforgettable a past love might be, over time, it all becomes mundane. What once seemed insignificant becomes cherished only when it's out of reach. No matter how much one is loved, they will always yearn for the love they never received. Regarding Emily Frost's remorse, I could only say to myself, serves her right. I handed over the follow-up of the project entirely to my assistant, Cecilia. Occasionally, I would guide her on uncertain matters, but I tried to avoid direct contact with Emily.
Betrayal, once it happens, doesn't get a second chance with me.
Cecilia went to the domestic office on my behalf and successfully secured the project. She also brought back another piece of news.
Miss Frost asked me to tell you that she got divorced.
When Matthew planted someone in the company, I already had a vague idea. I just didn't expect it to happen so quickly. Even Alex Smith was surprised when I messaged him about it.
I just found out too. How did you get the news so fast?
She reconnected with me recently because of the project. She specifically asked my assistant to relay the message.
Everyone knows her intentions. But why does she keep haunting you? Does she think you're a backup? Disgusting.
Do you know why they got divorced? Matthew played Emily like a fiddle. He was married abroad to a wealthy woman and returned home only after losing a lawsuit against her stepson.
When Aunt Frost found out, she was so angry her hands were shaking. She slapped the photos right in Emily's face. You should have seen Emily's face. It was so dark it could drip water.
Matthew's antics didn't stop after they got married, and their relationship grew colder. When this came to light, Emily had someone draft the divorce papers the next day.
Now they've split cleanly. I remember Emily was willing to give up her family fortune to be with him. And now, just a year into the marriage, they're divorced. Thinking about her past attitude, she must feel incredibly foolish.
I suddenly recalled Emily mentioning that Matthew has changed. It was laughable. Matthew probably hadn't changed, he just didn't meet Emily's expectations. Once the novelty wore off, true feelings began to surface.
Apart from project-related interactions, I had no further contact with Emily. I ignored her emails and friend requests. She was good at imagining herself in love with a perfect partner. It used to be Matthew, now it's probably me. Let her be. I have a new life now.
As for Emily Frost, she is nothing more than a distant memory, not worth mentioning.
It wasn't until Alex Smith was preparing for his wedding that I returned to Hong Kong after many years. Accompanying me was my daughter, Lily.
My wife, an overseas Chinese, was conducting research in Antarctica at the time, or she would have joined me for the wedding. After catching up with Alex, Lily wanted to visit the children's playground in the nearby mall. Knowing she had no playmates in the country, I nodded and took her there.
Lily was clearly excited, almost running the whole way. Her energy was boundless, and I struggled to keep up. In a moment of inattention, Lily collided with someone at the corner.
I'm sorry. She's just a child. Are you okay?
John Carter?
The voice sounded surprised and familiar. I looked up. Emily Frost. To be honest, it wasn't until I looked closely that I dared to confirm it was her. Suddenly, I remembered that this mall was owned by the Frost family, so it wasn't surprising to see her here. Emily looked significantly different from before, appearing more haggard and worn out, a stark contrast to the vibrant woman I once knew.
Long time no see. This is
My daughter, Lily.
My callmate Emily paused just before getting into the car, but only for a moment. She quickly explained and instructed the driver to leave.
Sorry, there's an urgent matter with a client. I have to go.
She was lying. Her thoughts were clear.
From the tone of his voice, I can tell Michael is upset. If I don't appease him, he won't let me come home tonight.
I'm not one to dwell on my own thoughts. Instead of overthinking, I decided to take action. I found an excuse to meet Emily Frost's secretary privately and used my mind-reading ability to gather more information.